What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 76 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. Now, many moons ago, May 31st, 2021, I had a guest on this podcast whom I had met, and I was immediately impressed with their work ethic. I was immediately impressed with their ability of how to get information across that made sense and had a value to it. And what I'm talking about is when I was reading articles through Police One, I saw, several articles from this gentleman, and he was able to bring things up that put him in a poignant way that made you think about the reason that it was a topic that people needed to hear. And so I reached out to this gentleman. I called him. I asked him to be on the podcast. He agreed. So if you go back and you recall episode 24 of the What's a Hero podcast, it was when I was doing the two-parters. You will recall a gentleman by the name of Jarrett Morris. Jarrett's he's a lieutenant for a sheriff's office on the West Coast, and he has done a ton of things. And I said, hey, what do you think? Actually, he reached out to me and said, hey, when do I get to be back on? And I was kind of putting it off a little bit, but I said, you know what? Let's bring him back on. So today you guys get the honor of getting to listen to and talk with Jarrett Morris. And welcome back, sir. How are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. I mean, had you not, I'm always looking for guests and always trying to bring people back on here. And the fact, because there's so much stuff that we don't get to talk about, even though some of these episodes are, 2 hours, 3 hours or something like that. There's so much stuff that we don't talk about, we don't touch on. And there's all these things that people do. And it's been a good year plus that, and in this case, almost a year and a half, that we're sitting here and we're able to actually get back to what are you doing now? And what have you done over the last year, which is you've got quite a bit of stuff that's been going on. I know Jiu Jitsu has been a major thing in your life over the past year and a half, but so are some other things. And so we're going to just kind of recap who Jarrett Morris is. But if you've not listened to 24, go back, listen to it, because it's going to be that much easier to kind of keep up with us where we're at. But let's kind of go over a little bit of a recap of who Jarrett Morris is and what it is he likes to do and all that good stuff. So where you from? What do you do? I mean, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the city, on a farm? Were you cowboy? What'd you do when you growing up?
I was a wannabe cowboy,
yeah.
But I grew up in, I guess what we could call the suburbs of Santa Barbara. I grew up in a small town of Lompoc, which is in Santa Barbara County. It's right next to Vandenberg Space Force Base. So I wasn't a Air Force brat, but pretty closely aligned with a lot of Air Force kids. And I was a normal kid, liked to ride bikes, run around. I was a 80s, 90s kid, so my parents never saw me until it was dinner time.
Yeah, latchkey kid. After school, you go home and they'd still be at work, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Grab a snack and head on out.
Yeah. And always get in trouble for not getting your homework done because you're busy out playing or doing something like that, huh?
Constantly. That was a constant problem.
And so that's kind of a theme that as I talk with people, is that they're outside. They go outside. a lot of the heroes that we talk on here, that are veterans and our police officers, guys that just are active in doing what they're doing. They were always go outside and do something, riding their bikes and getting in trouble and getting their knees scraped up, and how many close calls they had, they couldn't even count because it was so almost that way. But you obviously made it. You go through school. Now, you were talking about, as you were getting close to coming time to become a police officer, was that something that you wanted to do, or was that something that was it just kind of sprung up on you? I don't recall. Maybe you can fill us in.
Yeah. So as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a cop. I remember riding my bike around as a little 6, 7, 8-year-old and doing my best impression of a siren, cruising around my neighborhood. I think I got pretty good at it. But my grandfather was a law enforcement officer. He retired up in Sacramento from the Sacramento Police Department. And my uncle worked at LA County Sheriff's. And so I was almost embedded in the culture from a young child. And it's just something that stuck with me, and it's something I've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And so you got into it. Now, you went right into being a police officer, right? Or did you go through like cadet stuff and...
No, I skipped out on all the exploring cadet stuff. I got hired back in 2005, and I actually started as a records clerk in our county jail. Nice. Did that for a few months.
Nice. So you get into that and you start figuring out this is what you want to do. And now you've been doing it how long? How long have you been a cop?
Almost 18 years. Going on 18 years. And
you are working as a cop. I'm sure you've got tons of stories to tell, different things that you've seen, or give us. This is something that I've noticed that I've been asking people lately. Where was the point where you saw yourself change from this kid who wants to be a cop, who is a cop, and then you saw yourself mature? Like you really, your mature time, was it with like 3-4 years after you started, or was there a certain call that made you kind of realize, okay, this is what I'm doing, and this is the thing that kind of changed you? Where's the watershed moment in your career?
That's a good question, because I've been very lucky throughout my career. I've moved around early a lot. I got into a shooting after being a cop for only a short period of time, less than a year by myself. And so that obviously changes you. That's something that's different. Mm-hmm. And looking back, as I matured, that was a lot more impactful on my life than I ever thought it was at the time. And I then moved into criminal investigations and working gangs as a young cop too. And again, I probably wasn't mature enough to do that job. Mm-hmm. But it took me several years to figure out that I can be mature, and that I can take the right path and do the right things and be that guiding light for other people. So I'll be honest with you, man, it was probably 6-7 years before that happened, over a cumulative events that have occurred in my life as a cop. But I was a little slower to mature than I probably should have been.
Yeah. And did it affect everything about you, not just your police work and your work ethic there, but everything outside of work as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I got married young. We had kids young, and my lack of maturity and the stress that I was dealing with at work, and not necessarily dealing with on a personal level, mm-hmm. Affected my marriage. We're lucky, thank God for me. I'm still married to a wonderful woman, but I have put her through the ringer on some things just because I refused to deal with my own demons and stresses that I was developing as a cop.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of those?
I was the classic detached, where when I was home, I wasn't really home. I was thinking about work or hanging out with my cop friends. always on my cell phone checking email, because you know that most important email is always next, and
Right.
you got to get on that right away. And I was lucky enough I didn't have any alcohol or substance issues, which was good for me. But it was more of just being detached and then slowly developing of being like an angry person. So the whole theory of like kicking the dog. But it was more for me, it was like yelling at the kids for no apparent reason. Hey, Dad! And just start screaming at them.
Right.
And I was going down a very dark path.
Right. I remember hearing a guy speak about that one time when, you start talking to the kids like you talk to people on the street, where you're like, you talk to a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, you're, show me your hands, do it now. And you're like, wait a minute, they're got their nightgown on and they're ready to give you a hug to go to bed and go brush your teeth, and you're, go brush your teeth, don't do it now. Why are you? And we lose that sense of who we are or whatever. And the people around us are like, what do I do? Because I love this person, but I don't like them at all right now. And how did your wife?
Yeah, and that's where.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where it was in my household. And she just, numerous times they're not the bad guys. They're not the gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
They're your children. You don't need to talk to them like that. So exactly what you're talking about. But it really just got to a point where she told me, hey, there's something going on with you and you need to go get it fixed, and you need to go talk to somebody.
Right.
Which is the last thing we want to hear, right?
Right.
Because
we fix things. We're the ones that fix things. We don't need someone else to fix us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to share my secrets with somebody. And,
especially have them tell me that I'm messed up or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But I basically got the ultimatum. Hey, you either go do this, or there's going to be other solutions in your life that you're not necessarily going to like. So,
right.
She basically threatened me, but it sent me around the right path.
That's good. How did, and we obviously we don't have to get into too much. How did you meet her? How did you know she was the one that? How did you meet your wife? Because obviously she's a solid force in your life. How did you meet her?
Yeah, well, maybe you should have her on here because her story is completely different than mine. But we, I'll try to meet it in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
So she actually worked at the sheriff's office at the time, and she was transitioning to another job. But I was having a birthday party and up at a lake nearby, and I invited a bunch of people to come camping, and she ended up coming. And through bad decision making or a little bit of alcohol, there's probably a little bit of alcohol there, I'm sure. I just continuously would hit on her, ask her out. She claims I asked her to marry her several times on that first day that I met her. And she eventually fell for me, I think, but it took a while. I think I asked her out at least 100 times. It might've been quasi stalking. But we're here now.
Right.
11, almost 12 years later.
Well, and she obviously got it. She understood the law enforcement side where you were, if you're struggling, you're going through things, and she's able to say, you need to talk to somebody, you need to figure it out. She's willing to go through it with you. But do you think that there's anybody else that could have spoken to you the way that she did? Was there anybody else that had that relationship with you that would have been able to call you out at that time?
I don't think so. Nobody did. But take it into consideration also that a majority of my friends at the time were cops. And so all of them are going through similar things, or most of them are going through similar things and just not recognizing it themselves. And so I just don't think anybody else would have. And I'm lucky enough that she was willing to do that and not just boot me out the door,
right.
Which does happen, right?
Right.
And so I got incredibly lucky with her, and even still to this day, as a husband does, I make her mad and angry sometimes, and make not so good decisions, but we work through it. And communication, it took me is weird because I had to learn how to communicate with her. I can communicate with anybody on the street, right? And like you said, solve problems. but I had trouble, eventually developed having trouble communicating with her. And so that was a struggle and a challenge for me, but
yeah,
come a long ways.
That's cool. Now you and I know each other. We first met we were doing a class with Jocko Willink, and I've listened to a lot of Jocko and stuff like that. And one of the stories he tells is that story about how he is in the SEAL teams with all the other guys in there. And then when he would get home, he would talk to his wife, and he would kind of start talking the same way to his wife and his kids the way he would talk to the guys on the teams, and anybody. And it's the same thing with cops. We're a little bit more rough around the edges when we're with other cops, or if we're on SWAT teams or whatever, because we see such dark stuff that some of the dark stuff becomes humorous, because the humor is what shows us the light in what we're doing. Nevertheless, he was talking about how he started talking to her the way that he would talk to the guys on the teams, poking fun and all this different stuff. And we can really jab each other on our teams and stuff like that. And he tells the story how she turned to him and said, "Hey, look, I'm not one of your SEAL guys, okay? I'm not one of the guys on the team." And he said, "Oh, you're right. That's okay. You're my wife. You're right." And so I've noticed myself, I'm giving my wife a hard time. I'm joking with her, and she's actually said to me, "I'm not a cop. And it's not like I'm saying things mean or rude or I'm uncaring with it, but it's more like I'm just being myself." And I have to be reminded, and she reminds me that she's a flower in my garden, and she's not one of the weeds that I walk around with, one of us guys that just is rough around the edges. And I'm assuming the same thing applied for you, right? You would bring whatever you are home from work, and then she would have to kind of set it straight. Like we don't have that relationship. That's not who we are. Am I close to the?
Yeah, 100%. And what was interesting for us, like, she was a really good sounding board for me. Like, I know many cops don't want to talk about work at home
mm-hmm.
or with their wives. I was the opposite. I could come home and debrief with her, if you will. But I got too comfortable doing it and gave her too many details. And so I really think there was some secondary trauma that I was creating for my wife by telling her some of these stories, or, "Oh, hey, I got shot at today." Like, it's completely normal. And she's like, "Well, excuse me? You did what today?"
Right.
and not even thinking about it. Like, this is no big deal. I could tell you this and it's no problem. But looking back today, I think some of that stuff really did cause some issues. And so I wouldn't say that I limit what I tell her. I more give her a pre-warning of, "Hey, there's some gnarly stuff that happened at work today. I can tell you about if you want to, but if not, I won't share it with you." And so we do have a balance now that I didn't have before. But again, it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I had a very similar thing, but I would also hold back a lot of stuff. But she would see it on my face on the heavy ones, or I'd come home and I would, especially when I worked graveyard, we had about a half hour that time I'd get in bed till her alarm would go off. So she would wake up before her alarm, and we would kind of chit chat while I'm laying in bed there trying to fall asleep. And she would, she would know when I had a rough night, and, I would say it was a really bad call and I'm just bothered by it. And she wouldn't dig. She would just say, "Oh, okay." But then other times I would say, "Oh, the funniest thing happened." And I'd tell the funny story, whatever happened. And she's laughing. And so it was good. And I noticed that I kept what I needed to keep away from her under certain circumstances. And then I would tell her some of the stuff that I needed to tell her. Sometimes I just say, "Bad call tonight." And she would say, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I said, "No." And she would leave it. And she goes, "Well, he'll tell me when he's ready." Well, something like that occurred. We were driving out on one of the back roads by our house, and we were, I don't know, 20 something miles from the house. And I said, oh yeah, down that way. Oh, just up here. We had a SWAT call one time. She goes, oh really? And I said, yeah. And I told her the story about how we went into this place, and it was, we went in and searched this house. I rammed the door and we go inside. It was an A-frame house. Go check the house. We clear it. We go upstairs, and it was like a loft bedroom upstairs. And we clear that. Nothing's in there. There was this chest that was in front of this attic / closet door. We slide the chest out of the way, open the door, go inside and clear the attic. It's clear. We're like, all right, good. The house is clear. We get out. We got all the people that were in the main house and all this different stuff. And then we left the scene, we cleared up. We get a note from the lead detective, I don't know, about a week later. He goes, hey, check out this video from the house. So he shows this video, and it's the property there, and and they have this thing out in the middle of the field. All of a sudden, it just goes 3, 2, 1, and you see this big old explosion. We're like, holy cow, what was that? He goes, who were the guys that moved the chest that was up there, up in the A-frame? And I was like, oh, that was me and one of our other guys. And he goes, oh, yeah, there was a pipe bomb inside that chest, and we detonated it. We're like, what? He's like, oh, yeah. I mean, that thing could have gone off when you guys moved that chest. And so we're like, holy cow. So, I mean, we're all right, noted. But I told my wife this story, and she's like, what happened? I said, oh, yeah. And I was just telling the story, like not even thinking about it, because it's good 3 or 4 years after the fact. She goes, I didn't know this story. I said, oh, yeah. And she's now visibly bothered by it. And I hadn't even thought about it. But obviously for her, it's an issue that she hadn't thought about. But I was just like, what? Nothing happened. But it could have. And so we had this conversation about, yeah, I'm glad you didn't tell me. I wish you had not even have told me now. Now I'm still more worried about, I said, don't worry about it. Things, blah, 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 blah. But you never know. And,
yeah.
And there comes that time that sometimes you tell them, sometimes you don't. And it's kind of that's why they are such a blessing to have that support system and that better half that helps you out. So.
Yeah. And I think it's just, you have to learn that balance. I think we all have to go through it with our own personal relationships and learn that balance. And
right.
There's going to be some pitfalls, let me tell you.
Right. And it's a learning curve on both sides, but that's why you have to develop that relationship first. I think it's very important. It's just like anything else, and leadership in and of itself is building relationships and subordinating that ego. So then you can use those things and have those people help and support you when you're actually going through a rough time, or they're able to see the problems that you're going through and help you through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took me a long time. That's kind of what I was talking about, the maturity level of learning that building relationships is important. Learning to, in Jocko's terms, subordinate my ego.
Right.
And it's not about me. It's about everybody else. It's about the team, but it's not about me personally. And I just never was taught that. No one ever guided me towards that. No one ever pointed that out to me. And so that was something I had to learn and develop by myself. And thanks to Jocko, he kind of helped me guide the way a little bit and,
right.
And get me there.
And it's kind of funny. It's like, it's almost like something that you knew, at least for me, it's like what you knew, but you never knew how to implement it. As a kid, you grow up with them. It's like, okay, don't be selfish. It's not all about you and all this different stuff. But then when you get older, you're like, oh, that makes sense. It's not all about me. And it's going to go so much better when you do put others first.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If anybody can learn that now as a young cop, that'll get you a long ways pretty quick.
Agreed. So you grow through that, and you get to this point where you're now penning articles for Police One. How many do you have now with them?
I think I'm up to 6 or 7, and I have another one coming out either this week or next week.
Nice.
So plenty.
Yeah, and it's all different topics, right? It's all what are some of the topics that you're going off of?
So my very first one was on the use of rapid DNA in law enforcement and how my agency was using it. And then I went into supervision and I wrote an article, but I wrote an article about supervising millennials. And I'll admit on your podcast, I am a millennial. But there was an obvious struggle with supervising millennials, and we're having struggles now supervising even younger generations.
Mm-hmm.
And so this article was for basically sergeants or above to give them some little guidance on how to supervise millennials, because it is drastically different than some of the baby boomers that are in our executive rankings. And I didn't think police one would pick it up. They did pick it up. They liked it. I just found out it's being used in some post management schools in Southern California. So that's kind of cool.
Can I get paid on that, please? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take a little cash for that. But
That's right.
But other than that, I did one on some canine gear when I was supervising the canine. I just did one recently about preparing for mobile field force deployments as we're getting ready for the elections and things again. So just kind of little tidbits on, hey, this is how you can be a little bit more prepared. But a vast majority of my articles are around wellness and fitness and nutrition for law enforcement.
And where did you go to school at all for any kind of writing, or is everything that you know about writing you picked up being a cop and writing reports?
I got a C in English in high school. But yeah, most of it's just been a couple of different things. Writing reports, but writing articles is a lot different than writing police reports.
Sure.
And then my wife being my editor for a very long time on some of these articles, and she still helps me to this day. But yeah, a lot of it was self-taught and trying to figure out how to do it.
And I'm assuming reading a ton of articles and seeing how these guys are writing theirs and stuff like that. There's some genius guys out there that write some good ones out there, and it's cool to read those. So I think you're in good company with that.
Ton of articles and ton of books. It helps so much.
Yeah.
The more you read, the better you become as a writer. It's amazing.
So on that topic, what do you see as the importance of reading? You know, because this is a question that I ask a lot of people: is what book are you reading right now? And so that's, I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I'm reading this or reading that or whatever, and some people say, I don't read. And I guess my question to you, one, is what are you reading right now, and what do you find the importance of reading to be?
So the book that I'm reading right now is The 5 Rules of a Jiu Jitsu White Belt. So it's going over like the basics of these are all the things that you should know about being a white belt. It's a pretty good book. It's quick. I think it's less than 100 pages. But it has a lot of good information. But for me, I read a lot of leadership books, a lot of historical books, and anything and everything in between that is going to make me a better law enforcement officer, a better parent, a better spouse. I just get a lot out of it. I took reading for granted when I was young. I'll be honest with you, I didn't start reading probably until like 4 years ago. But I constantly am reading now. So,
and that's my question, I guess, is I'm wondering, aside from, what do you find the importance of reading? Where do you see reading as a thing? Is that just a passing fancy, or do you see it as an important thing for people in general to need to take up?
I think everybody should be reading. Thank God my 11-year-old is already really into reading, especially history books. Mm-hmm. But I think it just gives you a glimpse into how other people do things. It gives you a glimpse into the history of how we messed up or things that we've done well in the past. And I think it's all, for me, part of that ego thing too. Like, hey, let me set my ego aside. And so for me, I think it was putting my ego aside and being willing to take on what other people had done well or what other people have messed up on, and learn from their mistakes, learn from what they did right. And I think when I was younger, I was too egotistical to even consider what other people have done, and move forward. So I really think it's important for me and for my kids and for people I work with to read as many books as you can. But I just think that's something that you learn and pick up later in life if you're not into it at a young age.
Right. I have a hard time sitting still. I'm all over the place all the time. I mean, you can ask my wife, we go on vacation or something, and she's good sitting by the pool with a book or not, and a drink, and she's sitting there. She'll sit in the sun, go get in the water, get back out, sit in the sun, go get in the water, whatever, at the pool. And me, I'll sit there and I'll sit up. I'll lay there for a minute and a half or something like that and get up. I'll go get in the water, get out. Like, oh, hey, do you need anything? I'll go get it. I'll go get another drink or, whatever. And I can't sit still. I have to go explore. I have to go look around. I can't sit still. So reading is difficult for me. My mind is always going, and I'll have to read the same page sometimes 2 or 3 times or the same passage. And I'm just like, dang, focus, man. And so I find, I can read if I'm doing it, before bed, if my mind is slowing down and stuff. But I also notice that I am able to get a lot of information if I can do audiobooks. So I'm a big fan and proponent of audiobooks. I can get a ton of information in. And then, provided the book, depending on the book, I can get I can really focus on it. But the audiobook has been my go-to for a long time now, that I can get good 20 different books a year under my belt just by able to do that. Do you do audiobooks, or do you just do actual reading ones?
I do both.
Hard
so
copies.
I'm a lot like you. I can do like 10 pages at a time and not much more than that. I do listen to audiobooks to and from work. I have about 35, 40-minute drive. So I try to double tap it, if you will, get a little bit of reading in. Because I feel like I get a lot more out of that. I get a lot more out of physically reading a book to help me with writing than I do from the audiobooks. But I do, much like you said, I take in a lot of information and cover a lot more ground with the audiobooks, depending on what it is. So I listen to those to and from work almost daily if I'm not listening to a podcast. But I kind of do both.
Right. And so then it would go to show that you have about at least 1 or 2 books at a time that are always going through your head, I'm assuming, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's very similar to me, but I guess that explains why I can do the podcast. I have all this different stuff and I can't sit still, and I have to say stuff all the time and whatever the case may be. So, I see where you're coming from, where you're coming at from that angle, but that also feeds into your other hobbies. Like you said, Jiu Jitsu, you're reading a book about Jiu Jitsu, but you also do other things, anything fitness related and all that stuff like that, which kind of, brings us to where we are, what you've been doing over the last year. One of those things is a ton of Jiu Jitsu, correct?
A ton of Jiu Jitsu. Still a white belt. And you'll hear people preach all the time, it's not about the belts, and I truly feel that way. I'm very comfortable with going and getting my butt kicked on a regular basis, and it happens all the time. And I feel like I do learn a lot more getting my butt kicked than if I went in there and probably kicked everybody else's butt. But Who knows? Maybe that's just my excuse. But I do enjoy it, and the vast majority of time I'm rolling with dudes half my age, and so that's a challenge for me as well. And again, subordinating that ego and not getting too upset by these young whippersnappers kicking my butt. But yeah, I do. I usually have been training about two days a week. If it's a good week, 3 days a week, but I get about 2 days a week in.
And so what are you, I know aside from joint locks and arm bars and heel hooks and stuff like that, what are you learning specifically on a more detailed or granular level in regards to jiu-jitsu? What is, because it's not, I know it's not just all aggro dudes going in and locking up. There's more to it. And what is that? What is that there's more to?
So I take a lot of perspective on how can I apply this to the streets as a cop.
Right.
And obviously, in some parts of the country, use of force has been strict or compressed down to where we are very limited in some of the things we can do, especially when we go hands-on with a bad guy. And so taking into consideration, what am I doing on the mats and how can I translate that onto the streets? And so I think it's very important to understand and be very proficient, especially as a white belt, on the foundation move. So being in or having someone in your guard, taking side control or being in side control, or taking top mount or being in top mount. And so obviously one of those is offensive compared to defensive, and learning how to be comfortable in those positions and then working through those positions to gain control of your opponent on the mats. And that's where I spend a lot of time focusing. And you obviously can take all those different foundation positions in 100 million different ways to get into wrist locks or arm bars or different types of chokes. But as a white belt, I need to be focusing on those basics, not get ahead of myself. And many practitioners will tell you that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's completely true. And again, I need to just be able to tell myself, hey, I'm learning, I'm getting there, and this is a continuous journey, and not try to get ahead of myself and get myself hurt or get my opponent that I'm training with hurt because I'm trying to do something I'm not prepared or comfortable to do.
Right. I guess speaking of use of force, what is it that people don't understand about use of force? I mean, we see all these things on the news and stuff, and this isn't a question that I'm asking specifically, but I'm asking more for the folks who might, be listening, and because I'm a use of force instructor, and I go through all these different things at work, and I understand that side of it. And do I know everything about it? No, but do I understand the ethos of it? I do. But what is your take? What is it that people don't know about use of force that they probably should or they could, based on jiu-jitsu and based off of your experience as a police officer?
Use of force is ugly. Like, it's going to look ugly, and it looks bad on camera almost always. And having the ability for a cop, and there's several, I don't know the exact stat, but there's thousands of use of forces that happen throughout our country all the time, and we see on the news very few of them, right? It's the ones where the cop or cops may have done something egregious, or it just looks really bad when it gets on camera. And understand, I believe people should understand that it does look ugly, but we, for the most part, the vast majority of law enforcement officers in this country are doing what they can do based on their skill level and based on the training that they receive from their agencies. And sometimes, for me, for example, I'm 5'8", 160 pounds. If I go fight someone that is 6 foot, 220 pounds, it's going to be very difficult for me to control them and very difficult for me to get them into custody unless they are compliant. If they want to fight me, then it's probably going to look ugly. It's probably going to result in me getting my butt kicked. Who knows? But it's just, I think that's the simplest thing. Like, it doesn't look pretty,
Right.
but we are doing what we are trained to do, and within policy and within the standards of the law.
Right. So you get that idea of what the news puts out, that every cop's a racist, and he's going out there and he's just trying to injure people, and they're heavy-handed and they're just jackbooted thugs going around. And that's obviously not what police are. I don't know a single officer that does that, because there's so much involved with doing that. Nobody wants to go out and hurt anybody. They didn't get into this job so they can go be a jackbooted thug or be heavy-handed and start ruining lives. We get into this to you ask any kid who, when you ask them, why do you want to be a police officer, they'll say, I want to help people. You're not helping anybody by punching them in the face when you walk down the street. And I don't know a single cop that does that. I mean, and so that idea that is getting portrayed by the news media, that's what the cops do. They're always out there, and once they get that information out there, then they're hiding it, because they do their own investigations or something like that. And that's not true. Where do you sit on that? I'm assuming you see the same thing. We live in different areas. However, I'm assuming across the country, around the world, police officers are the same way. They're not looking to hurt people. They're looking to help them. And it's just the people who kind of refuse to stay within their lane, I guess, for lack of a better term, is the reason that we have to use force.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I've never seen a law enforcement officer act out of line. I've never been in the position where I've had to intervene and stop a cop from doing a bad thing. And I've dealt with many, many high stress critical incidents throughout my career. But I think both of us, we both work for West Coast law enforcement agencies. Mm-hmm. And I think along the West Coast, we have very good state standards and state training standards. Although training could be better, I think we would all agree with that. We do have pretty good standards, which keeps us in our states off the news for the most part. And I really feel like you don't see the state that I'm from or the state that you're from on the news very often because of those standards. And so I think there is that balance. And then maybe there is something to making a nationwide standard for law enforcement officers, and that may get rid of some of these incidents that we're seeing across the country.
Right. I agree with you 100%, because it's not like that we don't have the training. It's that it's just that we don't have enough of it. I think there's so much more training that police officers can be going through, that it's not there, and it's not that there's not the dollars for it. It comes down to time, and it comes down to the ability to still do our job. You look at any military force or anything like that, they have a ton of time to train before going to war. They have their workups and whatnot, right? If they're going to go overseas or whatever. And it's not to say that we're going to war. However, what we're doing is that we're missing out on a giant thing of time. We just don't have time because we work 40 hours a week. And then we have overtime. And that's all these extra things that people request of the police department. Hey, we need parades covered, and we need special events covered, and we need protests covered, and we need all these different things that we have to go do. And we're willing to go do those things. But, oh, hey, you also have to do your regular job, and we have all these other things. And then you start looking at, well, when are they going to have time to train? They're always and the amount of people, because we have minimum resources that we have to dedicate to certain things. We have a minimum number of officers that have to be on the road and all this different stuff. We just don't have those people because there is a dwindling market of police officers that are just leaving the profession for one reason or another, whether it's retirements or whether it's politics they don't want to deal with anymore. I think that we need to train more is the benefit that we would be able to maintain our numbers, but we don't have the ability to do that because we don't have the numbers to do that. And then it boils down to having to pay us overtime to come in because we're taking them off the road. And there's just a whole bunch of different variables that keep us from being able to train. However, we hit those minimums, but if we can get more training in, this how much better would we be? So a lot of times our training becomes our on-the-job training.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if I was in charge for a day, we would be doing 20% of our time training.
Yeah.
And like you said, just deployment wise, that's not possible for those minimum patrol standards that we have to do and take into consideration all the things that us as law enforcement officers are required to do or are doing just because of convenience for our cities and counties. And I know some of that's been being looked at and what we should actually be deploying to and not deploying to. But yeah, 20% is what we should be doing. And there's a lot of full-time SWAT teams across the country that do live up to that standard. Right. Of training 20% time, but they are a full-time team and just dedicated to one assignment, not handling calls for service and not being responsible for flying the flag out on the street for a 12-hour rotation or shift.
Right.
And so it's where it should be.
Yeah. I mean, because you get those guys are great, and those guys are hard chargers. They're hardcore, and they're willing to go after it and do that. The full-time SWAT teams. But you got departments that aren't full-time SWAT teams. You got maybe some departments don't even have SWAT, and they're patrol guys, and the only training they get is the next traffic stop that they're on, or the next knock and talk they're going to go do. You know, how many times do we learn in interrogation skills by interrogating somebody? You know, like, that didn't work, I'm going to try this, and then you try something and it works, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what I did there. And then you may not have another opportunity to do that for another 6 months or something like that. And you're like, okay, what did I do last time that worked? You know, so it's just on the job stuff. And it's just it's difficult sometimes, but it's the nature of the beast. It's not because people don't want to train. It's because there's only 24 hours a day. Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So you keeping that in mind, and that not only goes for, let's say, firearms or interrogation and interview skills or whatever other training that we might do, you know, defensive tactics or emergency vehicle operations or anything like that. But that goes for actual physical training. Are you finding guys are limiting themselves in their actual working out time because they're tired or because they've worked so many hours of overtime or whatever the case may be? Or is it
when it comes to all those skills, so whether it be jiu-jitsu or physical fitness or even firearms, we have 24 hours in a day. We're all working. A lot of us are working mandatory overtime shifts now, as well on top of our normal shifts. And we have families and wives and children and other things that we need to take care of. And so I'm starting to see, I believe, that slipping away more and more into or down the priority list. And it's a problem. And I think we need to be cognizant of our physical fitness. We need to be cognizant of our nutrition and how we are taking care of ourselves so that we can be more resilient and better to handle that traffic stop that goes bad, that search warrant service that goes sideways, coming home to children or a spouse that have had a bad day. And we need to be ready to be at the top of our game in all of those situations. And because we're not taking care of those basic skills, we're unable to do that. And I do truly believe that if we continue not to take care of ourselves as law enforcement officers, that we will see more incidents that on the news. We will see more cops that are getting burned out at young ages and leaving, which is going to cause recruitment and retention issues even more than we're having now. And so it's important.
Yeah, because I'll see guys, I mean, whether I see it on TV or on the news or on some Instagram post or Facebook post or whatever, and I'll see guys that are like ridiculously out of shape, and they're police officers, and I'm like, what are you doing? And you see them just quitting in the middle of chasing a guy, or they're telling the person, okay, stop. I'm done fighting. What are you doing? We don't have that. I don't think we have that option. We got called there for a reason, to stop this person from doing what they're doing, and so whether or not we have to chase them till we catch them, if they get away, that's one thing. If they get away because we quit, that's another.
Yeah, and I'm very comfortable and know that I can defend my family, and I'm sure, Ken, you're probably the same way. That if some bad guy showed up at your door, you're gonna do what you're gonna do and take care of business. Where I'm concerned is when I'm at work and I'm not home, I expect the cops that are in my area to be physically fit enough to protect my family.
Right.
And I don't think that is a priority sometimes. And for many, I'm not sure how it is in the state you're in, but for my state, we'll train you and we'll put physical fitness in your mindset, and we'll beat it into you essentially through the academy. But the day you graduate the academy, it's no longer a priority. And that's the same way across most of the country. And so there's not physical fitness requirements. There's not physical fitness standards. And we don't do anything to ensure or assist fitness for our law enforcement officers. So oftentimes they're left to their own demons, and it's not a priority. It just becomes not a priority for them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not that I want to talk bad about them, or I want to demean another police officer at all. But I mean, we have to consider that we have to be an athlete. We have to be a tactical athlete for this job. That's part of our job, because we never know when it's going to happen and when it's going to kick off. Could be a traffic stop. It could be you're just going to go out and talk to somebody out in the lobby of your police department. It could be you're going over to this little old lady's house because she's reporting that a bicycle got stolen or somebody got into her bank account, and then her grandson comes out and he's suffering some mental health issue, and he decides to attack you. Are you able to defend yourself? And those are just examples. I mean, I don't know how many cop killers they've interviewed that they decided to kill cops or attack cops because they thought that they're going to get away with it because that was an easy target. I mean, I remember hearing a story one time where a guy, he was accused of killing a cop, and he actually got found guilty, and they did an interview with him, and he said the police had come to his house previously, and there was an officer that came to the door and knocked on the door, didn't answer, but he looked at him. He was inside the house, and he watched him walk up, and he didn't attack him, chose not to do it. The next day, another officer came, did the same thing. Nothing happened. Third day, officer comes, and he thought, I can take this guy. And they asked him, why'd you do that? And he said, because this guy looked like I could do it. He looked like an easy target. The other two, they looked like they could handle themselves. So the mindset that these guys have when they attack cops, when they think that killing a cop is going to be easy because the target was easy, it looked like it. And that's something that we have to fight, that stigma. We have to fight that thing where we don't look like we're an easy target. You have to carry yourself, not just carrying yourself, but you also have to have confidence in yourself that you'll be able to take care of yourself or your family or your brothers and sisters next to you when that time comes that they need you.
Yeah, and even go back to the beginning of this podcast when I was talking about being angry and yelling at my poor little children that just wanted daddy to read them a bedtime story.
Right.
I was the least resilient person that I knew at that time, at least in my own head, because I wasn't sleeping right, I wasn't eating right, I wasn't working out consistently, if at all, some
Mm-hmm.
weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I was just go, go, go. And that was in a time where I'm chasing around gang members and drug dealers, and where I should have been more resilient and more prepared to do it. I'm just lucky that I have the genes where I just don't put on a lot of weight. And so
Lucky you.
yeah, lucky me. But it's true. Like, it still affects me. It affects, because I'm not working out, I'm not eating healthy. It affects my mood. It affects the way that I sleep. It affects everything I do throughout the day. And no one ever taught me that. I had to learn that on my own, the hard way. And I think it's very important. It's just as important as jujitsu and firearms and communication skills and all the other perishable skill sets that we need to know as law enforcement officers.
Right, right. So what are beings that we're kind of going into this realm of getting in shape and taking care of yourself, and the encouragement that we would hope that everybody kind of takes is that you get in shape. What are you doing, and what have you been doing over the last year and a half that kind of helps along in that? And before we get to that, I want to read something really quick, and maybe you can tell me what it is that I'm reading. And that will be the characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. What is that the definition of?
That's the definition of ethos.
Ethos, the word ethos. And what is ethos to you?
So ethos to me is my definition of who I am and what I do, how I carry myself, and how I'm going to project myself into the future and teach my children, be a good husband, be a good law enforcement officer. It's everything that is me, Jarrett Morris. And it's for you, it'd be the same thing. Everything that's for you, Ken. But I need to live up to that. I need to live up to being that role model of a law enforcement officer. I need to live up to being that role model as a father figure for my son and my two daughters.
Right.
And I need to be that good husband. And so ethos, although that definition is kind of all over the place, the basic reasoning, the basic definition for me is it's just me. It is who I am and the direction that I'm going.
And so what does that have to do with our conversation now? We were talking about all these different things that kind of led up to this point. And what is now that the culmination of everything that is Jarrett Morris, you've decided to take ethos and make that something else, not just the culmination of you, but the culmination of your ethos and making it something else. What is that?
So I've been working out and figuring out how to be physically fit. I've been working on nutrition. I have not been doing this on my own. I've been utilizing a trainer, which I'll get into in just a second. But I've been learning all this stuff over the past several years and making a better version of myself so I could do all those things. I can be the definition of my own ethos, like we talked about. So recently, I partnered up with another cop that I grew up with as a law enforcement officer, and we launched a company called Dose of Ethos. And it is about building more resilient law enforcement officers through mindset, physical fitness, nutrition, and overall health.
So what does that look like? What is that? How do you share that with other folks? I mean, obviously you can tell them, hey, eat better. Here's a good meal plan or whatever. Here's some good workout programs. But it's not just that. You're not just giving somebody, here's a list of things, go do those. You're doing something more, right?
Yeah. We're essentially like we're doing on here. We're telling stories. We're explaining the good and bad. We're explaining the why. Why should you be going and doing these things? And a lot like the conversation interaction that you're having right now is these are all the reasons that you should go do that. So we have a couple different things that we're doing on the website. There's a blog section. Since we've been talking about, I like to write. A lot of my Police One articles are on there, and I have many more lined up ready to go on there. We have a physical fitness app. What's really good about that physical fitness app is we're building out programs that are for law enforcement officers. Our trainer, Nick Falk, who I've been using for a few years now, has partnered with us, and he is very well aware of the needs and wants and limitations, and what those, kind of like you said, those super athlete law enforcement officers that we need. And so our programs that we have up right now is the Pre-Academy, which is built for people who want to be cops, that are training to be cops, or those that are preparing for a physical fitness agility test. Mm-hmm. We also have a Back to the Streets program, which is for a lot of those cops that you and I have been talking about that have maybe not been taking physical fitness so seriously, and want to get back into it. Maybe don't have any idea, much like I did, of what actually it takes to be physically fit, how to perform the different exercises. And that one's a really good program. And it starts out kind of light, if you will, and builds you up through a 3-month process to where you're doing some pretty hardcore workouts towards the end. Mm-hmm. And all built around the needs of what a law enforcement officer needs.
And so you're looking at everything from how you're going to use it, but you're looking at the ability to fight off lack of motion because you're sitting in a car or sitting at a computer all day, typing reports or sitting in a car, and then having to be able to explode out of that car at a moment's notice. Or you're talking about going and doing rigorous things for long periods of time and then stopping and sitting for long periods of time and that whole back and forth. Or you're also maybe talking about the guys that are on graveyard that having to work late nights, that are doing things when they're tired, and vice versa. Am I close to?
Yeah, you're exactly on point. And we have several different workouts that are being developed right now that will be a little bit for the next one we have coming out is tactical fitness. So that'll be for like your SCT or SWAT operators or your K9 handlers. Mm-hmm. And so we're working on just developing different programs for different types of law enforcement officers, and we want to make it affordable. We want to make it easy to use. It's a downloadable app, so you can use it right on your phone. There's videos of each different workout being performed. So if you don't know how to do a specific movement, mm-hmm. Our trainer walks you through those movements in a short little simple video clip. So it's really built for those that don't have a lot of physical fitness knowledge or have been out of that physical fitness game for a little while, like we all have.
Right. And where
to do sometimes.
Where did this idea come from? Where did this how you say, we're just chit chatting with this other guy? Or you've been kind of sitting on this egg for a little bit and thinking, this is what I want to do?
I've been sitting on it for a little while, and I kind of got a push from some friends, and I'm working with this other guy who's helping me out, getting a lot of this stuff off the ground, and then the physical fitness trainer, Nick, getting him to buy in and want to be part of the program and develop all these, because he's a certified trainer. I am not. And so he was a very crucial piece of this puzzle.
Right. But I'll look at, like, let's say your Instagram or whatever, and I'll see that you're doing those workouts, and you'll take photos or whatever of doing those things. And one day it's, doing sandbag stuff. Another day it's going on a hike with a heavy backpack on, or something along those lines. Are you noticing that, I guess, what all is included? What all are you doing as far as physically? And is it things that are completely out of your realm until you start doing them?
No, like I said, everything starts off very basic. And even for me, like my journey of physical fitness started off very basic with Nick, because I had to learn a lot of these things because I haven't done it in a while. And the programs are built the same way, so that even if you haven't been in the gym in 10 years, you're going to be able to come in, start out slowly, start figuring out what the different exercises and motions and movements are. And it's a crawl, walk, run type mentality.
And what are some of the things that you're doing
for the app, or
and for all the workouts? Is it just going in and putting weights on a bar and just doing that, or is it something different, something more?
No, it's a lot of, like you talked about, sandbag workouts. It's a lot of movements and stretching to be able to develop the body movements of exploding out of a car, like you talked about. There is a lot of basic weightlifting that goes up into more extreme weightlifting. A lot of I'm forgetting the term right now. Sorry. Anyways, we'll pass that. But yeah, it's a lot of physical fitness movements to make you a better cop, to get you to where you can perform and explode out of a car. And even more importantly, in my mind, that you're doing some form of exercise to make yourself more resilient so you can handle those more stressful events and be a better cop, a better dad, a better spouse.
When you go through these things and you're going through, let's say, the workout itself, and then as you're going through, let's say when you're going through the workout, are you noticing that the harder it is, the workout itself, the easier other adverse things are becoming?
Yeah, and I think that's the same with jiu-jitsu, right? You're getting some adversity on the mats. You're getting some adversity in the gym with your workouts, and things just don't seem as hard. Stuff that used to bug me in the past doesn't bug me anymore. I'm not yelling at my kids. I'm not getting in stupid arguments with my spouse. I'm not letting some college student that knows everything about this world and yelling at me. They're not getting under my skin.
Right.
And so all those things help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember hearing a conversation or whatever David Goggins was having one time. And he said, this is one of those things, the harder you work out, the harder you do whatever the thing that is you're doing, the easier it's going to be to face that time when you get that call early in the morning that maybe a family member has died, or, you're going to be able to weather that storm just a little bit easier because you're not having to stress about, because you've already gone through adverse stuff. You've gone through things that are hard. You've gone through things. And that not only goes for workouts and things like that, but it goes through being able to sacrifice your food, because there are some people that are so addicted to food that food is their thing. And if you've sacrificed and you've put this off, you're not eating sugar, or you've not eaten whatever, so you can, or you've stopped doing alcohol because then that was the thing that was controlling you. You're now able to control it. And so now you're in your mind, you're able to now control yourself in these difficult situations. You see the same thing?
Absolutely. That's I think spot on. And that's the goal that we're going for. And on top of that, we're developing classes that we're going to be teaching about resiliency. And one of the classes that I'm very excited about that we're hoping to launch in January is called Bulletproof Kit Up.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to be a 2-day class. And there's going to be classroom instruction about resiliency and how to be more resilient, and all the side effects that come with stress and all the bad things of being a law enforcement officer. And then we're going to have a 4-hour jiu-jitsu block. So we're going to go over basic arrest and control and get people on the mats that may not be used to being on the mats.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the second day, a little bit of classroom time, and we're going to have some close combat shooting in the afternoon. And so it's going to be 2 full days of resiliency and the importance of working out and the importance of jiu-jitsu and the importance of shooting. And it's going to be a pretty cool class.
And that's in January you're talking about?
Yeah. Our first one's going to be in January.
What's something like that going to run if somebody wanted to sign up?
We're still trying to figure out the price point because of insurance, but we're looking right about $500 would be for a 2-day class.
That's not so bad. And
No.
And so that's actually kind of cool, because if you're spending half the time, doing jiu-jitsu, another half of the time doing, firearms, you're able to, your mind is just wrapping around those things. And that's where it's putting them all together. And there's going to be a point where it's not seeing the difference, especially as you start looking back on it, you're not seeing the difference. You're not able to discern the difference when your mind starts putting it together.
Yeah. And tying in how resiliency, and mindset and physical fitness tie into jiu-jitsu, which then ties into firearms, and just putting that all into a package for everybody, to get them in that right mindset moving forward. And hopefully they'll take on, hey, maybe I should be training more on the mats. Maybe I should be working out more in the weight room. Maybe I should be shooting more, at least dry firing consistently, so that I have all these skill sets up, so I am more prepared and I am better off.
Right. I I coordinate our Citizens Academy, and basically, and I'm sure you're familiar with what these are, but for those that are listening that don't know what that is that it's where, a police department will put on an academy for people to be able to, find out everything there is about their local police department. And one of the classes that I teach is the defensive tactics class, and it's an extra class, and it's a 4-hour block, and we get them in there and we teach them the foundation of stance. We teach them how to hit and how to do all these things, and then joint locks and how to actually start putting it into practice. And a lot of the feedback I get is people start saying, man, I didn't realize what I didn't know, or how bad of a shape I've gotten in, or something along those lines. But once they get into it, they start saying, man, I wish we did this more often. And people have the opportunity to do this stuff more often. There's jiu-jitsu schools everywhere. There's martial arts schools everywhere you go. And there's gyms everywhere. What are you finding that you're seeing that's putting this barrier in between people and their fitness, their ability to
that's a good question. I'm gonna steal a simple phrase from Jocko. It's excuses. Like, the excuses run deep. And last time I was on your podcast, we talked about a jiu-jitsu program that we were doing for law enforcement officers. And honestly, we had trouble filling that class up because people just couldn't, it was too expensive. It's a 1-year program for $350. That's not expensive at all. One-time payment, $350. And you have these same guys, and I'm not talking bad about anybody specific, but they're going out and paying thousands of dollars for a brand new rifle that they're maybe going to deploy 1 or 2 times, right?
Right.
And so it's just excuses. I don't know exactly what the mindset is, and that's kind of one of the things that we're working on, is just make it as easy as possible, give people easy access to these programs and information, so that they understand why it's so important to be physically fit, why it's so important to be skilled at your different tasks that you're required to be skilled at, and then develop that positive mindset. Hey, I can handle myself. I can take care of my partner. I can take care of my family. But yeah, I wish I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But I think there's just so many reasons why.
Right. I'm going to put it in perspective for you really quick, is that $350 a month or a year is $30 a month, give or take. So you're looking at,
yeah.
I mean, how much do you spend on coffee? Because it's easy. I mean,
exactly.
It's easy to make the excuse and not want to invest in yourself. And I think that's part of the thing, is people don't give themselves enough credit, and we don't give ourselves enough worth that we say, I'm worth investing in. I don't mind drinking a bunch of sugar-laden coffee every day, or, eating a bunch of burgers and stuff like that every day, because we don't think of that as an investment. But the investment, because we're not seeing the value of it right away. We're seeing that at a future time, but that's the investment. And if you just give yourself that opportunity to invest in yourself, put that $300 in there, or the $500 like you're talking about for this 2-day class, or, join your martial arts dojo or your jiu-jitsu academy. Join that, get into the gym, talk to people. And we talked about before, subordinate that ego and start asking people, okay, how do I work out? Have a plan before you go into the gym. And in order to do that, you got to talk to somebody, because a lot of us, even people like you and I who've been working out a long time, it's going to be difficult for us to put together a workout plan just off the top of our head. Sure, we can do it, but to keep it fresh and to keep it changing is the trick. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit and find the value in ourselves, which we should, but we don't find the value in ourselves to invest in ourselves.
Yeah, and I don't want your listeners to get me wrong either. I'm not a David Goggins. I'm not a Jocko Willink.
Right. Yeah.
I don't wake up at 4:00 every morning. I don't go for 20-mile runs every day. I am a working law enforcement officer. I am a parent. I am a spouse, and I do drink sugary drinks sometimes. I do eat not so healthy things sometimes. But it's all about a balance, and it goes with your physical fitness. It goes with your sleep. It goes with everything. Just be balanced. And we have some articles coming out about that, about sleep and being balanced with your sleep, and nutrition and physical fitness. And so, don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes. I do miss workouts sometimes.
Sure.
I haven't worked out today. Full disclosure. Hopefully I get to squeeze that in. But if I don't do it today, there will be time made tomorrow to do that. And just try your best and try to take incremental steps to make yourself better. And the phrase that we use, and I won't lie, I stole this from one of your guests. I don't think he said it on your show, but I'm also friends with him, Chief Roger Shy from Idaho. He uses the term 1 degree better instead of 1% better. And I use that throughout the website. It's on the shirt that I'm wearing right now in the back. But being 1 degree better every day to improve yourself is what you need to do. And it's a small little increment. And so whether that is I'm going to work out today. I'm going to start a new workout plan. I'm going to eat a little bit more healthier tomorrow, or I'm going to build a relationship or work on a relationship that I've been neglecting over the past several years. Just do something every day to be 1 degree better. And over time, those increments are going to build up, and you're going to see a different version of yourself, much like I had to struggle through in my own life.
And I think that goes for everything. I mean, we shouldn't be, and I think that's what their social media gets us, is that's what digs into us, and that's the thing that says you need to compare yourself with everybody else and try to keep up with the Joneses and all this different stuff, when in fact we should be comparing ourselves to ourselves. And that's where that 1 degree better, and we're talking about that 1 degree better than yourself yesterday. And like you said, change that relationship, go talk to somebody, or make sure you get the workout in that you didn't get, work just a little bit harder, put maybe 1 pound on whatever it is heavier than what you had yesterday, or something along those lines. I remember a story that I heard a long time ago. There was a farmer who, and this is mythological. However, he birthed a calf, and he was able to take this calf, and he picked the calf up, and he walked around his barn every single day. And he would pick this calf up and he'd walk around the barn, pick a calf up, walk around the barn. Before he knew it, the calf started becoming a cow, and the cow started getting heavier. Now, I don't know too many people that can lift up a cow and walk it around their barn. However, the thought was that he continued to do that, and every single day, whether he knew it or not, the cow started getting heavier, but he continued to do it, and he would make sure that he was 1 little bit better than he was yesterday, stronger or whatever. So that's the idea, is that if you can keep up with what you're doing, keep yourself, and be honest with yourself. And are you being better than who you were yesterday? And it's difficult, especially to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I failed today. I'm actually not better than I was yesterday. I slipped back and I did whatever. But that's where the side where you're a human, and that's what makes you different, is that you see it, you're willing to call yourself out on it and say, you know what, I need to step up better and be better for those people who rely on me. And I think it's cool. I think that's cool that you do that because, like you said, you are human and you have to struggle through life just like the rest of us do.
Yeah, so. Absolutely, man. I did want to throw out, I'm going to send you a shirt.
Oh, sweet.
And then I wanted to also, I'll throw out for all your listeners too, if they want to go on and get a Ethos shirt or join one of our programs, we'll give them 10% off. Just use a What's a Hero for the discount code. So What's a Hero, and they can get 10% off the shirts and 10% off the workout programs.
Look at that go. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's going to get used like you wouldn't believe. So,
I love it.
I really encourage you guys listening to do that. So how can people so tell us really quick, how do we get a hold of you again? We can find you where?
So you can find me on the website, www.dose, D-O-S-E. As I go blank. All right, let's go over again. You can find me at www.dose, D-O-S-E, ethos, ethos.com. I still said that wrong, didn't I? Dose of Ethos. Sorry.
So
let's try that one more time.
No worries. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So you can find me at www.doseofethos.com, DOSEOFETHOS.com. And you also can find that same thing, Dose of Ethos, on Instagram. And anybody can DM me or reach out to me through the website, and I'm happy to help them get on their path and be that 1 degree better and find their own ethos.
Absolutely. I think that's awesome, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing people get in better shape because they're listening to this, but then they're also able to hook up with you and your team and help them get 1 degree better. So that's awesome. Super cool. So
thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Jarrett, thank you for coming on. I know you got to get going. You got stuff to do. So you probably got to go work out, go get somebody trained up and make sure that even your kiddos are in good shape. So you be safe out there, sir. And hit me up anytime you need anything.
You too, man. I appreciate you.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you later. And Jarrett Morris has left the building. You know, I say left the building, but it's hard to figure out what building he's leaving when we're on the interwebs here. And if some of you that don't know is that I don't have a majority of these people come into my studio and speak with me. A lot of this is done via Zoom, and it's kind of a cool deal that they can do it, because I'll tell you, there's people like, I've had John Kelly and Bobby Lediger been on here. Those guys were in Florida. And obviously, I'm far away. Like I said, I'm on the West Coast. I'm far away from Florida. There's no other way we would have been able to do this if it hadn't been for the internet. And the idea that everybody was doing everything by the internet during the whole COVID shutdown and stuff like that. So if there's one thing that came good from COVID, that would be the idea that we can all get together and we all see the comfort in being able to talk to each other this way, which is kind of cool. Speaking of those guys that are in Florida, that they just went through that huge hurricane, and I got a hold of John and I spoke to Bobby. They're doing good. They are no major outages on their part, maybe a little power outage and maybe some cleanup they got to do. They were not affected in a major way. Their houses are still standing. And actually, over on the east side of Florida, up where John Kelly is, he said they didn't see much of it. Just some rain, so that's good for him. But nevertheless, those guys are in our prayers. We think about them all the time. So those of you guys that are wanting to know more about the podcast here, you can find us on Instagram, and you can find us on Twitter and the Facebookie, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find our website, www.thewhat'sahero.podcast.buzzsprout.com. You can find all of our previous episodes, plus links to your favorite podcast platform in which you can go ahead and download each of these, subscribe to it, download it, have it with you when you're getting ready to go and go do some Dose of Ethos training. And you can have that, especially while you're working out. You can listen to podcasts. Now, I don't know how motivating we are as we talk have our long conversations and stuff like that, but you never know. You might find some crazy motivation in doing that. So I encourage you to just better yourself, whether you're reading a book, you're listening to a book, figuring out, learning these people who go through various experiences in their life to become better. Just work on yourself and help yourself become better, because you got to put your oxygen mask on before you can help others. Once you get that on, you can start helping others, and you can say, look, based off of experiences that I've heard about or I've gone through myself, this is what I've seen. I've helped people. And you can, and I know a lot of people that get motivated by the people whose stories they hear. And that we're just one medium in which we get to hear some awesome stories from some awesome people. And it makes a lot of difference. It helps a lot of change in people's lives. So the more we hear about it, the more I'm just excited to share it with you. So going back to how you can get a hold of us, and how you can hear the podcast. A lot of people say, well, hey, is it on Spotify? Yep, it's on Spotify. Hey, is it on, do you have it? Yep, it's on whatever podcast platform you can consider. And you can have the obscure ones, and it's on there. It's on Amazon. It's on Google. It's on whichever one you might listen to. It's there, I promise. iTunes, obviously it's there. But get it, download it, subscribe, help us out. Those numbers help us out, and we are happy to help you out. And additionally, go to doseofethos.com or www.doseofethos.com, DOSEOFETHOS.com. And you can sign up for the programs. You can sign up for the varying, depending on where you're at. If you're just wanting to get back in shape, even if you're not a law enforcement officer, if you just listen to the episodes, awesome. You can still do this and you can still get in shape. There's workouts on there. There's shirts on there. There's things that you can get from being on there. Use the code What's a Hero to get a 10% discount on that, and you will be amazed with the ability that you are going to have to be able to take care of yourself and help take care of other people. And that is truly an investment that is worth making. And I can't stress that enough. You have to invest in yourself. You have to find value in who you are, and you have tons of it. I don't care who you are, but you have to find value in who you are, and you have a lot of it to share with each other and to share with other people. And by doing that, you will find that the rate of return that you're going to get from investing in yourself is way more than what you could have imagined had you not done it. So I really encourage you to do that. It'll be awesome to see who you are. And if you are getting to that point where you're like, yeah, I've been doing that, let me know. I'd love to hear about you guys knocking it out of the park and working out and getting better and all that good stuff. So do it. Take care of yourself. Use the code What's a Hero upon checkout and use that for the discount. And you'll be amazed with who you are. So those of you guys, we do want to thank all of our teachers, our nurses, our first responders, firefighters, EMTs, all of our law enforcement out there, you guys that are out there kicking butt. And that goes for every municipality, sheriff's office, state trooper, or highway patrol officer, your alphabet departments, your DEAs, and your U.S. Marshals, and our Border Patrol, all you guys out there that are keeping us safe and who we are. I thank you so much, and you have my gratitude for what it is you do and who you are. And to our veterans, I can't thank you enough for the sacrifices you guys give us. So I wish I had the words. I am not as eloquent as some people to be able to use the words to show my gratitude to all of our heroes out there. But you have ours, and we thank you so much for everything you do. So remember, you have value. Invest in yourself. Take care of yourself. And get a little dose of ethos. So for Jarrett Morris, I have been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.